Hey, this is Free Range Organic Human. This is my second podcast. I'm living here in the urban jungle of Tucson, Arizona. I hate to admit it, but I've kind of fallen into a predictable pattern. I have this regular route that I'm following. I travel between the Walmart parking lot where I park my van and camp overnight. And then I usually get up in the morning if I'm not working, like today's Saturday, and I drive to Whole Foods and buy some water or a cup of coffee and use the internet. And then I usually am there for a little while until the library opens. Then I go to the library and I do some work on the internet using the Wi-Fi there. That's where I uploaded my last podcast, and that's where I research, different things and jobs and things I want to do. And so I saw my first cockroach inside the bathroom at the library, and it really freaked me out because it was a huge cockroach. It was probably about close to 2 inches long, maybe like an inch and a half, but with like the big antenna, it was like maybe 3 inches long. I mean, just this giant bug, and I think it was dying because usually when you see a cockroach, they see you and they take off. They have a real kind of awareness of what's going on that other bugs don't really seem to have. That's why they're creepy. I was talking to a friend of the podcast, Mark Heiner, and I was trying to figure out why I'm freaked out by cockroaches, because this guy is really into insects, this guy Mark Heiner, and he really studies them in depth, and he travels around the world and takes really good photographs. He used to, I don't know if he does this anymore, but he used to sculpt insects out of wire, and they looked really cool, these really cool sculptures. But he's been to Costa Rica and the Amazon rainforest, and he's really into different types of insects. And I'm like that too. I'm not like an entomologist or anything, but if I see a cool bug, I'm interested in it and I try to identify it. But so I'm not a kind of person that's like freaked out by bugs or seeing animals. But if I see a Norway rat or a cockroach, I get really, really sketched out. I just feel like this feeling of revulsion. I just want to leave the area. I just feel like this must be a bad place to be. I got to get out of here. Like, it really creeps me out. But I was thinking, if I see something like a raccoon, I mean, that's an unusual thing to see in a city. Like, if I'm in Seattle and I see a raccoon, or I see a crow, or some kind of animal that's not really what you'd normally see in a city, I think it's really neat. I think it's neat to see urban wildlife, but if I see a Norway rat, I'm like, oh, this is a bad place. I gotta like get out of here. They just like creep me out. Like if they surprise me, it even creeps me out even more. Like if I suddenly see them like close by to me, I really get creeped out. And so this makes me think of this topic that I've delved into before, this idea of synanthropes. And a synanthrope is an animal. I think it could be a plant too. It's an animal, some type of organism that prefers to live in a human-built environment. They're I think synergistic is the root word, or sympatric, whatever it is. The idea is they're animals that like to live where humans live, and they have maybe a symbiotic relationship, maybe sometimes more of a parasitic relationship. And so there's synanthropes that have been around for a long time, like house mice, cockroaches, Norway rats, and they're basically considered vermin or pests. But then there's ones that are less harmful that seem to live where humans live. Like an example would be pigeons, originally known as the rock dove. They were imported into the U.S. to be pets, to be homing pigeons, and they got loose into the wild, and then they made their home in cities, and they're just a fixture of cities. And then there's squirrels, like gray squirrels. They're very comfortable living in a suburban environment. Uh, Usually, I think red squirrels aren't really. You're usually more out in the woods, up in the mountains, and you see red squirrels. So gray squirrels, robins seem to be very comfortable living in urban and suburban environments. Raccoons have become more and more adept over the last probably maybe less than 100 years, but maybe like 60 years, 50, 60 years. They've become really at home in urban environments. And then increasingly the coyote, which is one of my favorite animals, the coyote has moved into urban environments, and they've really made their home in urban environments. They're very skilled at adapting to urban environments, and they can prey on other synanthropes, like rats and mice, and feral cats, birds, things like that, carrion, garbage. So these animals are more recent, and I guess maybe they have some novelty to them. Because I'm trying to figure out why I'm not creeped out by bugs. I'm not afraid of snakes. But if I see a Norway rat, like I said, or a cockroach, I really am freaked out. And I'm thinking maybe it's some type of like a fossil memory. Because these are animals that have lived with people for, hundreds, if not maybe thousands of years. Maybe for Norway rat, maybe 1,000 years. Because it goes back to the time of the bubonic plague, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Because they carried fleas that had the bubonic plague or something like that. So I'm thinking it could be like an ancestral or fossil memory that I just have in my DNA. Just, some type of epigenetic thing where I just sense danger. Because it's not an intellectual reaction. It's just a visceral reaction. I just sense danger and fear and revulsion. I get like a strong sense of revulsion. But if I see some weird bug, like a pill bug, earwigs do kind of freak me out. But if I see like a pill bug or a spider in the house, like I'm just curious about it. Like I'm not like, oh, I gotta get rid of this spider. Or if I see a bug I haven't even seen before, once in a while you see some kind of strange bug. I'm really curious about it. But as soon as I see any type of cockroach or a rat, mice, not quite as much, but a little bit mice too. I get this strong sense of revulsion. So I'm thinking it could be something in my epigenetics from my ancestors that lived in Europe and had these type of vermin and just learned over time from experience that they're associated with disease and danger and bad things. I mean, if you think about areas that get overtaken by rats and cockroaches, it's usually a pretty bad area. Like things have fallen into disrepair. It's kind of like a slum. Could be a lot of other dangers. Like dangerous people. Broken glass. Industrial waste. So I'm not sure, but it made me really think why I have this reaction to these animals that are considered vermin and not other animals. So I just thought I'd just share my thoughts about that. And I'm open to any comments or other experiences that people want to share to try to get to the bottom of this mystery. So anyway, thanks for viewing my podcast. This is going to be through Patreon. I'm going to be documenting my journey as I save up money while living in my van here in Arizona to drive up to Alaska in the spring and to work seasonally in Alaska in the spring and summer, and then eventually get settled into Alaska and buy some land, get a resident subsistence hunting license, and then try to build a life as a hunter-gatherer in Alaska. So anyway, thanks for joining.